Welcome to the NSI podcast, where technology, innovation, and strategy come together to empower today's IT leaders. In today's episode, we talk about supercomputers, AI changing education and healthcare, and even tracking data of students with a Fitbit. It seems more movement equals higher test scores. We're talking whole person education, body, mind, and spirit, and how all of it matters when it comes to learning and growing. So, whether you're a student, an educator, or just curious about how tech is changing the game, stick around. This one's going to get you thinking and even maybe moving. Today, we have Michael Mathews with us from Oral Roberts University. He's the Vice President of Global Learning and Innovation. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Have you been with them? Is it 11 years?
Sure. 11 years, Oral Roberts University in Tulsa, Oklahoma. We have 7,100 students here on campus. Oral Roberts University has been around for 57 years and has had 16 consecutive years of enrollment growth. And a lot of that's to do with technology, but again, just leveraging technology when appropriate, right? There's a lot of technology out there used inappropriately, people start stumbling over it.
Right. And tell us about how has become worldwide with the university.
Sure. So we believe that everyone has a right to an education around the world. When I started 11 years ago, we were reaching 85 countries. We are now up to 165 countries around the world. We're aiming for all 195 as documented by the United Nations, and we're well on our way to that. And so we really enjoy having students from every part of the world, and call it cross-pollination, but imagine being a student and you get to intermingle with all these people from around the world.
Wow, that is so neat. Well, we'll discuss that more on into the episode as well. But I wanted to ask about how you started. Was it at Cray Research?
Sure. I graduated college in Minneapolis, St. Paul, from a unique electronics institute where Cray Research Supercomputer would hire their engineers. And so I worked at Cray Research for 12 years right out of college. And in that, started as a engineer, then a trainer of all the supercomputers for engineers around the world. But then they started realizing there's got to be different ways to train engineers in a more efficient fashion. So I began to do, early days internet training, satellite broadcasting, video conferencing, everything that was available back then. And so I stand amazed this many years later how efficient education could be if we really wanted it to be.
Wow. So is that where your love for education came into play?
Probably my love for education became, and I was one of 7 kids in our family, barely made it through high school, to be honest. And a lot of it had to do with I missed a lot of school because of helping our father. And in that, it wasn't until about 2 years later I realized I was probably a little bit better than I thought based on my grades, and attended the first community college and got my first 2-year degree. And I just fell in love with education, to be able to, expand your thinking, your mind, and so forth. So I've been learning ever since, right? It never stops, so that's what makes me, I believe, efficient in innovation, right? Never stop learning. Don't get upset when something doesn't go your way, and you keep on stretching the envelope a little bit here, a little bit there.
Okay. I know everything I've read, you are big on education, and it was profound in all the readings I've read today. And I thought that was neat as I'm raising up 3 kids and got some tips from that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've helped more parents get their children to Harvard, MIT, other places, because they don't know if they qualify, you get the education for free at those universities, because by law, they have so much endowment that they have to give it away for free. But at the same time, the cost of education is, yes, it's high, but the money you make back over time is well worth it. So I still believe Oral Roberts University is probably one of the best education deals going in the world based on the whole person education concept.
That's pretty cool. So you started working for Cray. We have a university that we work with in Mississippi, one of the SEC universities there. And I think they've got the 11th fastest Cray computer in the world, or at least in the United States. And it's all glassed off. And I got to tell you, it is an impressive setup that entire cluster is. So,
well, yeah,
pretty cool.
Yeah, it's cool. So, there's supercomputers everywhere. Parallel processing computers would be the name today. But nonetheless, the fastest supercomputer in the world is doing 11 quintillion calculations every single second. And
oh my gosh.
1 quintillion is 1 billion billions, right? So it's fast, but that's what makes AI possible today. Is not just because it's cool or it's like mysterious. It's that it's running on these fastest supercomputers available today. But guess what? The human mind can already process 8 quintillion calculations every second, but we haven't allowed it to because of systems, political systems, government systems, education systems, religious systems, generally want people to perform at the level that fits the modality that they're delivering, class 1, 2, 3. So you can look it up, university in the Netherlands, 11 or 8 quintillion calculations every second the human mind is capable of.
Wow, that's crazy.
Wow.
So, you talked about the whole person education earlier at ORU. So how does your role align with ORU's broader mission of, the whole person education?
Sure. So when you think a whole person's body, mind, and spirit, if you go back to the 1940s, probably 80% of the universities were doing the same thing, or you stuck with it over time. And so the Chancellor Oral Roberts had believed that if you take care of your body physically, it will impact your intellect, right? So this many years later, we have one of the fastest supercomputers at ORU that can prove a student who walks between 10 and 12,000 steps a day will score two GPA points higher than those that walk less than 7,000, right? So everything correlates in our body, our being, right? And when you take that into consideration, we're just trying to help students. So if we have all the data available to access information to help the students understand how they learn, an example would be this. At ORU, every freshman gets a Fitbit watch so they can monitor their steps for this very reason, right? And take the athletic test that they have to take. But Ohio State University with University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill had proven the only way to measure cognitive load, in other words, if somebody's learning, is if your heart rate changes 4 percentage points. So you could be sitting in a class, and if your heart rate isn't changing, you're not learning. And so imagine helping every student by saying, hey, you got that Fitbit, you can decide to look at it and know if you've got cognitive load happening. Everywhere you go, work, at school, everybody's nodding their head. Yeah, I understand, until the test comes, right? And so to be able to be out in front of that and help people learn better is just a privilege. So that's technology. And that was 2016 when we implemented that, broke a record by the number of newspapers around the world that covered the story that ORU is issuing Fitbits. Now, the only other university I'm aware of that's doing it is Duke University, doing it for the right reasons as well. So we believe that technology can be leveraged in ways we never thought possible. So why would Amazon or Walmart do all this studying about correlations between people's behavior and outcomes and purchasing power? Well, because it works. And so we're able to tell you how much soy milk product every student drinks, how much bacon they eat. We don't spy on people. We're just observing to help people understand. Does it matter? Well, you don't know until you start measuring it, right? But if you can start measuring it, your outcomes will start improving. And if Walmart can get away with it, why not let education start taking advantage of data science? And so we started that probably 8 years ago. And so I would say my role at ORU is far more around cutting back on technology and leveraging the right technology than trying to just keep putting more technology. Students don't want more technology. They want it personal. They want it to work. They want it, call it consistent across all the classes. And that's what we've really aimed at doing.
That's pretty interesting. So as you know, we work with, honestly, some of the largest universities, especially in this region of the United States. And, one of the things that's always top of mind when we're talking about technology is, how do we use technology for student success. And it sounds like that's what you're doing. One of the things that we've always run into with some of these universities, especially the larger the university, the bigger the pushback is, how do we take this data and use it, and how do we balance that with privacy, right?
Yeah.
And privacy is always such a big concern, and that's always been a big pushback. Now, unfortunately for the athletes, if you're in the athletics program, they usually track everything they do. But some of the other students who are not in those programs, we're trying to figure out ways to track different metrics that can lead to student success, or that we can say, oh, this is a student that is in probably need of help, right? Or they're in danger of quitting, failing, or whatever negative outcome it is. What are the markers we can see in the data that we can start putting some things into place to help them succeed? What are some of your you said the Fitbit, and I'm guessing you're taking that data and you're able to use it. How are you tracking for students who may be at risk?
Well, I mean, all kinds of ways that we're using, but let me back up a little bit. When you think of student success, that's sort of an outcome that you want, but the real measurement is student engagement. If you can engage students with the faculty, you just see the grades go up exponentially. And so ORU has been ranked in the top 5 or 6 for the last 5 years of universities in America for student engagement. That directly correlates to student success through retention, through field testing for engineers, for nurses, and so forth. And so engagement really comes down this to me, that students don't come to a university to play with technology. Yes, they play with it. They actually come to a university to engage with students in the learning process. So every minute that I can reduce in stumbling over technology is one more minute of student engagement with the faculty, which is why they're here. And so when we can make technology almost like air, oxygen, without it being an issue, we've accomplished a great thing. And I've written an article called The Taste Test of Technology. You can taste test the food on a campus, but is your technology so good you can taste test it? It's sort of like a new measurement, if you would, to say, how good is your technology? And it's probably not what people think, because sales companies selling technology just want to keep selling more. I don't want to keep selling more.
That's their mission.
That's their mission, right? And I don't blame them. My mission is to watch students graduate with the highest grades possible, best career opportunities possible, and the least amount of pain or friction to get through. So on some campuses, I hate to say it, but the friction is the technology, because they stumble over it. They can't get logged in. They have a security issue, whatever the case may be. And so we're really working hard at seamlessly integrating technology to make sure that students feel they own it. And if they own it, they use it. If you issue it as a university, they seldom will use it. People are frustrated, say, hey, students won't use the campus email. I said, don't expect that they will. But they love texting. They love using mobile apps. They like doing their own email. Keep using that. And so we break down, I'll call it the skinware of technology. You got hardware, you got software. Skinware is everything in between, which tells you what they will and won't use. And students, virtual reality is one of the greatest breakthroughs, I think, in education possible. So what we decided to do is use skinware to say, I don't imagine people are going to get up at 8 a.m, do their hair, and wrap a pair of goggles around their hairdo. It just won't work. And so we came up with virtual reality glasses that come out of your pocket and they clip on your smartphone and you watch it through the phone. Never touches your hair. And it was a phenomenal success, right? But we do that with everything. And I think that's what Steve Jobs did. How do people really use technology and help people want to use it instead of force them to use it?
Yeah. Well, you talked a little bit about virtual reality.
Yep.
Would you talk a little bit about how you're integrating not just virtual reality? Are you also doing any augmented reality as well?
Oh yeah, we're doing augmented reality, virtual reality. We're doing XR now. We got a theater that's like the Mandalorian uses to shorten the time it takes to train film production. And so we believe in it. We've got cadavers that are all virtual now. In fact, this is a fun story for me personally. My granddaughter had to go through a limb lengthening surgery, very severe and so forth. And so I worked with a VR company out of Montreal, and they developed orthopedic training with VR. And so we used that. My 10-year-old granddaughter used it to start understanding the simplicity of pediatric orthopedics specifically. And so we see it, there's not an area that it doesn't make sense to use virtual reality. We'll call it immersive learning. So the category is immersive learning using AR, VR, XR, and probably spatial computing as well mixed in there.
Awesome. How about, I think the big buzzword, and it's come up on many of our recent episodes, is AI. What are your thoughts on AI as it pertains to, the learning experience?
Sure. The learning experience is going to get better and better, because the truth is, this has been sort of my pet peeve for years, is that most educators think that students are cheating all the time. That's not true. Most students want to learn. Most students want to get a good career, and they know cheating by itself is not going to get them there. They may cheat out of desperation because they can't afford to fail, but they don't wake up every day, I'm going to go and cheat. I mean, maybe 2%, if less than that, right? So we got to get past that hurdle and start realizing, how do we empower people in college or the university to use AI to not only learn, but to find solutions for some of the world's biggest problems. And so we would be foolish to try and hold back AI from students who are going to be expected to use it in the workforce. So I say it this way. I've been around quite a long time, and I didn't think I'd get to this point in my career where I would get the privilege of watching all this stuff integrate together with AI. However, it's going to change every CIO's job eventually, because it's one thing to be a chief information officer and manage 200 systems on a campus or maybe in a government system or somewhere else. But it's a whole nother level to manage 50,000 AI agents that are now in your environment. And so I say CIO, the term started in 1980 by Boston Bank, hired the first CIO. And that term has been used ever since. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, you mean to tell me all these, excuse my language, boneheaded CIOs won't even disrupt their own job title, but they're disrupting everybody else's life. I don't want to disrupt anybody's life. I want to transform things, right? And so I say AI maestro is somebody who can maestro the behavior of 50,000 agents, 200 systems, but look for the outcomes that are desirable while looking for solutions for today's problems. So long story short, to answer the question, I have never been more blessed to see a technology take hold in education like AI has. And it's this simple. 5 years ago, I'm teaching faculty how to push buttons. Yeah, you got to hold the right button down, push your left one, and then speak, and then hit the send button, send it to the learning management system, and they can't remember that. It's mechanical. But with AI, it's their native language. Open up Copilot, draw an image very vividly, like a Thomas Kincaid painting that reminds the students how good education is for their career. Bam, done. They didn't have to do anything except use their voice. Oh, that's their specialty, using their voice. Now, so we have faculty way out in front already. We've won about 4 awards already at ORU with AI competitions, but not by IT leading it, by faculty leading it. That's a blessing, because if they use it and they see the value in it, they'll let students use it. It's not IT pushing or controlling how it's being used. So I think, oh my goodness, it's time for a change, right? And we're going to witness it. Yeah.
Well, it's coming.
One more question, kind of on that, and I find this, so I've got quite a few daughters in college right now. Kind of on the subject of prompt engineering.
Yeah.
Do you see that becoming maybe like a core class? Maybe that freshman year at some point is how to prompt engineer to embrace kind of generative AI?
Yeah, I think it will. And it'll be like, if you go back 15 years ago, keyboarding classes were common. Right. They teach people how to use the keyboard because that's the interface into the computer. So prompting is the interface into these supercomputers that bring back information through AI. And so, yeah, we're going to see that happen, but eventually that'll go away. because it's literally going to be neural thought that goes into the computer. So I'm proving to people that I'm doing things at stoplights today that people thought impossible 10 years ago. And all I'm doing is having a thought and I'm expressing it in words and it's coming back. Now, I don't need prompt engineering slogans or anything because that'll just reproduce what other people are producing. I want to create things that nobody else has created yet. And that's this generation that's coming through colleges today. They're the same mindset. How do I create something nobody else created? So prompt engineering by itself may just reproduce what somebody's already did, and it becomes sort of a commodity, if you would. Not the prompt engineering, but the outcome of that. And so I'll say it this way to every CIO who's interested, to say, the science of technology has already been proven. It's going to keep getting faster and faster. Moore's law has been broken years ago, but the art of how to use it has not been touched at all. And so if you let the science alone, whether it's prompt engineering, AI by itself, and come over here and start saying, now, how do we use all these components that are coming together? How do we fabricate and assemble virtual reality with augmented reality, with immersive learning, with AI? Oh, you're going to produce something nobody else can produce. It's going to be fun to watch, but it's going to happen fairly rapidly because, I tell the story about Steve Jobs. Many people recall it, that of the same vintage. Steve Jobs loses his job at Apple. 17 years later, he comes back. It took 17 years, and all it was a power play between IBM, Apple, and Microsoft. And that same exact thing happened with the power play with OpenAI with Sam Altman about a year and a half ago, that he was let go so Microsoft could get control back. It only took 3 days now. So 17 years compared to 3 days. And what it really says is these trillion-dollar tech companies are in control. And does it scare me? No. Technology can't do a lot that we don't desire it to do, right? Yes, there's evil out there. Yes, there's people going to do bad things. But the truth is it's pretty limited. Now, I've been fortunate because I worked at a supercomputer company to get the basics behind, right down to machine learning, to Boolean algebra, all the way up to AI today, and say, wait a minute, it's the same stuff. We're just finally learning how to use computers in a way that wasn't possible before. Faster internets, faster computers are making stuff appear like, wow, how'd that happen? But it's really the same principle. So.
Well, I think back to, I remember when Google first came out, and now everyone knows how to use Google. I mean, I feel like AI is going to be the same way. I think everybody will just know how to use it, just like we're all immersed in technology now. I feel like it's for my parents and grandparents, it's harder for them because they weren't brought up in this era. But I think for our children, and I think it's just going to be second nature to them. Like you said, they might not, they won't have to have a class possibly.
So I think if you can take social engineering along with technology, you can start predicting some things. So for instance, that report I sent you by Elon University, very well-known university, right? And they're predicting what humans look like, act like, respond like in the year 2035 because of AI, right? Now that's a huge shift because I'm at the United Nations speaking a few years ago, and I said, the travesty of our day is this. Some company had the audacity to call something the Internet of Things. And the Internet of Things is so impersonable. And so when you think of tech companies just selling more quota, is it helping humanity or not? So we did it backwards, I believe humanity did. We called things Web 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, Generation 1 phone, 2 phone, 3 phone, 4 phone. But we should have called it Civilization 1.0, 2.0, 3.0. Because if we really cared about the outcomes of people, we wouldn't have just let technology flood the marketplace. We would have had some kind of understanding how it's impacting. So we're old enough to realize that years ago when Wi-Fi comes out, wireless, people say, oh, it's causing cancers. Well, that didn't stop it, right? Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. And then it's another phobia about this or that. The truth of the matter is we have an opportunity to orchestrate some of the greatest changes in civilization if we'll use AI, I'll call it properly. So back to 5 years ago, I'm at the United Nations saying technology companies are mislabeling things, but now all of a sudden, Elon University is saying, what does humanity look like? In other words, what does civilization look like 2035? I say, hey, we're making progress finally. because that's more the art of how technology, which is the science, begins to be applied in our everyday lives.
Right. Well, I wanted to touch on that report. It was very intriguing and kind of like alarming at the same time of what 2035 will be like.
Yeah.
Um, some of the authors in there was talking about AI generated animals and dogs and pets, and so I hadn't heard of that yet, um, but the significant change in people's way of thinking and about how they go about life in general is going to change so much. And at the end of the report, I saw the negative impacts of it. I didn't see there was some positive things like you pointed out.
Yeah.
But is it kind of scary of the negative impacts it will have?
Oh, yeah. And that's always plausible. I think, I share the story of when I'm a child, I'm going to school and the teachers would teach me how to get under my desk because the Russians were coming.
Right.
And my parents would tell me how to get in the closet at home because the Russians were coming. Well, the Russians never came. Did they go to Ukraine? Yeah. But they didn't come, right?
Yeah.
So if you understand, there's a term called cybernetics, how the world really operates, right? So the people that always have a cynical plot that somebody's coming to get us or this is going to take over hasn't really played out in the history of technology transformation, right? But the challenge for all of us who have, I'll call it a kind heart, maybe good mind, is this. My dream for AI, it comes around this pattern. My grandfather died an early death, 65, because he bragged he worked in the factory for 45 years and never missed a day, right? His badge of honor was never missing a day, no matter how much snow, whatever. And he was telling the truth. He did. My father, similar. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute. Everybody's afraid of AI simply because it's going to take away the 40-hour work week that they're enslaved to. This is insanity. And yet what's causing the problem is all this argument, Republican versus Democrat, capitalism versus socialism, rich versus poor. Dualism is really the term would be used, right? And so I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, as that's happening, the incredible, unfortunate things in the world today aren't being addressed, but other things are. Example would be in Chicagoland area, they anticipate maybe 1 million people in just a few short years will not be able to retire. They can't afford health insurance, car insurance, home insurance, just insurance to death. And right, but AI can now produce enough food to feed the world 4 times over every day. But we won't let it because of these systems that we've put in place. So we anticipate, not we or you, but me, people are in the know, just saying, wait a minute, as soon as we crack the education system, then the healthcare system, maybe the government system's in there as well. But as soon as healthcare is not holding everybody hostage to the job, they may have a different feeling. Wow, that's civilization maybe 5.0. Right now, you think of how many people have a job in America just out of fear they don't have health insurance. And I said, man, that's a tormenting life. You work only to provide something that can bankrupt you. And yet, what if we could come up with enough AI solutions, which I think we're close, to make this stuff almost free? But who's going to win the argument, capitalism versus socialism, right? And so it's going to be fun to watch this stuff sort of, if it would, crumble some of maybe the monetary system even, but in time. We see Bitcoin, we see cryptocurrencies all having a little impact, bite here and there. But at some point, enough tipping points start making the topple happen. And who knows what's going to happen with, in Washington with the Department of Education maybe being sort of disassembled in a different way. So time will tell, but I believe technology done right can sure do a lot of good. So those little negatives that I pick up on, it's like, what if we could get some great social engineers leveraging the good out of all this stuff? I think we're in great shape.
You say that like things have a positive and a negative impact. What did Trent say this week, Rich?
Yeah, he, what is the, how do you define what is right without using the word wrong in the definition?
I thought that was interesting.
Oh yeah. So what I mean on that whole topic, I'm fortunate. I get to go to a lot of places and speak, and I'll tell people there's no such thing as right or wrong, and that just shocks them. And I
Mhm.
said, here's what I'd like to say to you. There's something known as absolute truth, and when you find it, it liberates you. But when you find absolute truth, it doesn't know right or wrong because it's absolute. And so if you're seeking truth or wisdom, all of a sudden the rights and wrongs sort of dissipate along the way. And yet everybody's sort of back somewhere who's trying to defend their position, their religious belief, educational belief, government belief will keep saying you're wrong, I'm right, right? It's dualism. You see it all over the place. I mean, I hope it stops once people, the more education we get out there, the better off we are, right? I've got this message I give called the higher in education, or the H, higher. And it's education's way down here. I'll get a degree. I've got maybe 5 or 6 of them, big deal. But higher up than education is actually training. I learned to work with my hands. I can do something productive. Higher than training is knowledge. I got people who want to hire me now to work with my hands because I have knowledge that produces things. That education just got me in the door. But higher than knowledge is what? Intelligence. I got intelligence now. Multiple companies may want to hire me. Higher than intelligence is actually what? Wisdom. Higher than wisdom is truth, and its absolute form is a liberating thing. But if I hang out down here in just education, I'll never get up here. And so I can find more knowledge today, intelligence today because of AI than I ever thought possible. Validating facts and so forth. So I say it this way. People ask me to come work for them because I say this next phrase. I say, listen, AI is not biased. Humanity is very biased. So back in the 1980s, early 80s, governments would pay millions of dollars to numerous entities to digitize journals, periodicals, magazines, works that were done. All that stuff is now digitally accessible, but it has somebody's bias in there who's prejudiced or passionate or prideful. That's their information in there. Mm-hmm. So if we would take a true read on what AI is reporting back, and as somebody fidgeted with, of course, that's an exception, is that we would start understanding who we are as a people. Maybe we're more racist than we think. Maybe we're more prejudiced than we think. Maybe we're more this or that than we think, but will we look at the truth for once instead of constantly trying to stop somebody? And so I find it interesting, and this is my biggest fear, if there's a fear at all, is it's the money makers who are swaying people for their own company's benefit. So if I told you who started AI to begin with, you'd be shocked. And you say, wait, I thought that's the same guy saying it's no good. Well, guess what? There's a motive there. And so if you can trace back the motive and find out why people are saying things and then balance it to say, nope, I understand, but really, are any of us on this, whether it's this or people listening, going to go and tell Apple to stop producing AI today? Or IBM or OpenAI or Google? Probably not. And so I don't think legislation is going to stop it as well because it's all controlled now. And so is it a runaway freight train? No. It's just an advancement of what we always had for a long time. It's just more sophisticated because it's more integrated and faster. And so if we can put it in that perspective, I think we do ourselves a great service instead of fear. The fear mongers are always holding up things, right? Versus those who are liberated say, hey, let's do some good with the things that are available to us, like virtual reality, right? People can say, oh, I heard you can look at pornography with virtual reality. And I say, yeah, that's true. But I can show you how to do orthopedic surgery in virtual reality today. So the people in Ukraine who are having limbs crushed can now be repaired a lot quicker because the surgeons have virtual reality available to them. And so it's fun to be able to offset all the rumors out there. And again, the argument right versus wrong, and I'm like, oh, that's third grade-ish. We're way beyond that, hopefully.
Right. Well, there was something else I wanted to touch on about your granddaughter. Did she herself go through the?
Yeah, she went through 2 limb lengthening surgeries, right? Mm-hmm. But here's the fun part. It was 10 years ago when she was born, and she found out she had something called tibia hemimelia, mm-hmm. and they want to amputate. 99% of doctors say amputate. There's no alternative. My daughter said, Dad, I just don't think that's the right thing to do. I said, well, hang on tight. Now, ironically, it was the same year that amputation was sort of like in vogue. Angela Jolie had amputation body parts because what if she had cancer like her mom did? And so it was tough to push anybody against that, right? So suddenly we found a doctor in West Palm Beach, Florida, Dr. Dror Paley, who has in his lifetime helped 1 million people not have amputation because he understood the chemistry of the bone is dust. It's made from dust. And you can break the bone and grow it like a millimeter a day. And so we flew down there with our granddaughter. So yeah, that's not a problem at all. And sure enough, she had the first limb lengthening surgery, and it was incredible. And so I did a lot of videos for this surgeon because I could tell the good message for him. And so all kinds of people are calling us, hey, where do you get this? The problem is, how do you replicate that so all these people that have bone issues can get that solved? And that's how I got involved with the VR stuff. But now all of a sudden, I'm like, wait a minute, the magnetic frequency is now doing what 10 years ago took a fixator, a big round thing on your leg. You can actually grow your bone with a frequency meter, right? The power of frequency, all basic stuff that's now available that we didn't know was available. Now, how do you educate the world so that other people don't make the wrong choice? Now, amputation is the right choice for some people. Keep that in mind. I'm not saying it's not, is or isn't. In our case, it wasn't. So.
Wow, that's very neat, and that she saved a limb. I mean, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep, and she's proud. She went through it, and she was just in a beauty contest down in Jupiter, Florida, by a pro golfer who puts it on of people who had limb issues like that. And so it was just fun to watch the growth.
Yeah. Wow.
Awesome. I'm gonna kind of deviate in kind of questioning path here, but what's a book or podcast that has greatly influenced your thinking about education and innovation?
I would say early days, Malcolm Gladwell's writings definitely intrigued me to, sort of more, how do you come up with a concept that would shift human thought? That's probably the best way I can word his 3 books, Tipping Point, Outliers, and Blink. But at the same time, Seth Godin, when it comes to marketing. And so when you take technology today, it's not just a technology, it's back to the human or art side of things. How do you market something so you can explain why you're doing what you're doing, right? And so I would say Seth Godin, early days, Malcolm Gladwell. But today, I don't think one book is an answer for anybody because it's too vast and wide. So one email I get every day is called Superhuman, and it's all the AI news of the day. And it would shock you. It'd be 20 years ago, you'd get that same thing once a year, meaning once a year, hey, here's the latest science breakthroughs, blah, blah, blah. Here it's every day, and you can't keep up with it. But it educates me real quick on the boundaries, if you would, about this is happening over in biomedical, this is happening over here in space. So let me give you this example. ORU works with NASA on 3D printing, and on the space station, there's something called microgravity design. The gravity is so low up on the International Space Station that they can now manufacture artificial retinas. So they have shipped back 8 eyes to Earth to heal blind people. And so I'm thinking, wow, who'd have thought you could do that? But what's the difference between microgravity design and what's on Earth? You can't keep the proteins or the molecules, particles together, but you can on a space station. And so I'm thinking, wow, this is so exciting to tell young people about space, because the International Intelligence Agency 4 years ago said the #1 growing area in the world is not Singapore or New York City or anywhere today. It's space. And we're witnessing it before our very eyes. What does that mean for us? I don't necessarily know, but it intrigues me to know that on the International Space Station, you can create artificial eyes to heal blind people. That's unheard of. So when you think of technology, so many companies selling to campuses are thinking digital technology only. I'm thinking of everything in between, like frequency, patches. What is it that would help us? And so I don't know how old each of you are, but the audience out there, you may be old enough to know early days of color television, first 20 years. Your mom and dad would get the color TV set, and all of a sudden the red, green, blue colors would mix together. And your TV, you couldn't see the TV that well. You would have to go and get something known as a degaussing coil. And the gauzing coil, gauze means magnet. And so it's like a steering wheel you'd put up against the picture tube and you'd walk backwards and it would realign the colors to their appropriate place. That's sort of just the basics of mechanics or quantum. But nobody understood what was happening. That same exact thing is happening to our human bodies today. All these frequencies that we're exposed to are crossing, mixing up. And so the question would be, how do you degauze? How do you take time out or be silent? And so ironically enough, there's a technology called the anechoic chamber. In an anechoic chamber, the highest level ones are in Minneapolis, Orfield Labs, and in Microsoft out in Redding, not Redding, California, I forgot, Redmond, California, wherever. But nonetheless, you go in there and you can actually hear your heartbeat. You can hear yourself. So the world record is like 45 minutes in there without going crazy. So I went up and spent 1 hour, but I was only trying to do it for a different reason. And it was really to say, wow, we've penalized so many kids by putting them in timeout when it's really a reward. And so we're finding out, because of discovery and all kinds of things, that maybe what we were doing to ourselves and people were backwards. But how do you, now those of you who are in natural sciences or whatever, I'm not, but I know all about it, is that you can do something called grounding, touch your feet on the ground and remove some of these frequencies from your body. It's true. The earth is ground and so forth. High tide, low tide is all because of the moon and earth. Something at the center is called the Berry system. And so that frequency pull has an impact on our bodies, right? And so with enough AI, quick enough study, we're going to start solving some of these simple things. They're complex on one hand, but they're very simple on the other hand. So,
right. It's funny you mentioned grounding. I love grounding. Like if it's a nice day outside, I'll go outside with the kids and tell them to run around with their barefoot. So
barefoot, yeah. Mm-hmm. And there's all other methods of doing it too. So you can look up a term called Schumann's resonance. And Schumann's resonance is measured out of Russia every day for the last 80 years. But it's actually a frequency that goes around the earth 8 times every second, just whipping around the earth. And what it's doing is actually allowing equilibrium on the earth, right? Everything stays in orbit and so forth like that. It's all, pretty scientifically proven that this stuff is happening. But then there's more police reports on full moons. Well, I wonder why. Well, the moon has a pull on your body. Your body's made of 70% water, roughly between 65 and 75% water. And so it's having an effect on your body. And so if I'll call my wife some days and say, Pam, take it easy today. Something doesn't feel right. And it's just respecting the world, right? Respecting creation instead of me thinking I'm always controlling it, right? Technology is a piece within the great creation that somehow stays in orbit, stays in sync for the most part. So.
Right.
Well, so you've been a leader in IT for a long time. So what would your advice be, especially in education? What would your advice be for young professionals in IT who are aspiring to lead in educational innovation going forward?
Probably the number one thing that I would say today, but I wouldn't have heeded it myself when I was younger, is you can't outsmart the students. In other words, you may be great. You may have a master's degree in computer systems. You may have worked at this company or that company, but the students know exactly what they want. They know why they want to game at night. They know what impact it may have on them. And they're a lot smarter than you think. And so it behooves every young professional, at least in a college campus, to listen to the students. And they expect Wi-Fi to be perfect. And so put your priorities right, because I love inventing. I got 2 patents under my name. I love inventing, but I still have to realize that I got to keep the operations going so that doesn't come back and haunt me later on. And so pay attention to simple things, listen to students, talk to other universities, right? In the last 3 years, there's 200 universities that have closed. And it's a tough business to be in because you're running a restaurant, you're running a hotel, you're running, all kinds of different things, athletics, arenas, and it's all on you as the CIO. And so you've got to be pretty shrewd and wise and have a whole lot of vendors that you can trust. So
I think that's some good advice. A lot of young engineers or a lot of young up and coming technicians who aspire to be CIO one day. I think they always kind of focus on the technical side and they forget to look at some of the softer side or the leadership side. So it's good to hear you talk about not only that, but also you talked about the students, right? And especially in higher ed, I've seen so many times the engineering teams they'll forget, they're there to serve the students, right?
Yeah.
They're there for student success. So it's good to hear you kind of echo that.
And be a team player. I wasn't always a team player. Probably still have some weaknesses in that area. But the truth is, it's hard to do.
We all do.
Yeah, we all do. And a lot of it too is sometimes you get so frustrated that you just say, I can get it done myself better. And that happens on a regular basis. And in some cases, you're telling the truth. You might as well just do it yourself. But there's a lot of things that's not true. You're saying it because you don't want to go and deal with the maybe conflict or get input that is negative at first, right? But the truth is you've got to be a team player in today's world. No way around it.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. As a leader, that's a hard thing to learn sometimes. I had someone tell me, hey, just because you're the best at ordering pizza, Rich, you probably shouldn't be the person ordering pizza for the team. You have people who can do that, right?
Yeah.
So it's part of being a leader is it's not only being a team leader I've found, but also, putting some trust in that team to do the right thing and succeed.
Yeah.
I always think back to, since I have kids, bringing them up in the toddler child age years, I think back to, how you bring up a child. You just want to get the task done and you do it quicker and cleaner and better, but you have to kind of let go of that and this is a teaching moment, and
right.
And so they can step into that and they become a better person. Even though they're 5, they're going to be a better person just from those small things that you let go.
Yeah.
So
you're going to thank yourself too later, Cassie, that they can do that later and that you haven't enabled them to not do those things. So
Agreed.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Michael, today. We really enjoyed our conversation and we look forward to having you again on the podcast.
All right. Thanks so much, Cassie and Rich. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it was awesome, Mike. Thank you. Very good stuff to think about for sure. So thank you.
All right. You have a good afternoon. Blessings.
All right. Thank you.
God bless.
Thank you for listening to the NSI podcast. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and share the episode. Got questions or topics you want us to cover? Reach out. We'd love to hear from you. For more information, visit us at nextstepinnovation.com.